Greetings and salutations, everyone. So, the buzz of War Within is very much approaching. We've just had the alpha, we'll get into the beta, and then lastly, it'll go live. And despite the nature and atmosphere that this video is about to probably bring, I am quite excited for it and what this whole World Soul Saga has to really just tell. I'm looking forward very much to the story of what Xal'atath is up to and her good old buddy Ridicron and his own schemes. I absolutely adore the Darubians, I love the dwarves, very curious about the new Arathi, and I'm really happy with the current cast of characters that I've seen so far. Anyways, the new zones look good, new models are looking pretty fire. Really, everything is going quite well for this expansion, and I couldn't be more than happier. Truthfully, I doubt much could sour my expectations for the next upcoming expansion for World of Warcraft. Oh, wait. Where are the Horde? Yeah, okay, we're doing this again. Ranting time. Disclaimer. I will say, as always, that this information is based on the alpha right now, and that things can hopefully change. And I hope that this video will be hella outdated. But, well, let's preface this issue by really just explaining it. For a while now, World of Warcraft, as you might know, gods I hope you know, has two factions, the Alliance and the Horde, and with any game with those two factions, you're of course going to gravitate to some form of character or characters. Generally speaking, of course. And it's up to the writers when those kinds of characters and stories will come to light. Surprise, surprise, I've always leaned more on the Horde, who could have thunk? It's got some of my favorite characters, leaders, aesthetics, and so forth, and that hasn't aged differently since I first started in Reign of Chaos, where that interest in the Horde started with Thrall's storyline, who really just started this whole journey and investment of Warcraft for me personally. But let's not get too sidetracked. Even if I do think it's important to kind of segue as to why Thrall's absence and the Horde's absence frustrates me, because, well, Thrall is just one of my favorites. But that's just not the only reason here. In the past, the Alliance and Horde, for the most part, got screen time pretty equally, with a few duds and maybe more earlier expansions. Like in Cataclysm, where it mostly focused on Thrall as a primary character in defending the world from Deathwing. Or in Legion, where it focused on Khadgar, Velen, and Magni for the main cast against the Burning Legion, who, while we're meant to be more neutral, we're still Alliance heavy in the same way that Thrall is Horde heavy. They might not exactly be technically a part of the Alliance, I mean Velen is, he's a leader of the Draenei, but they still are Alliance adjacent. They still have biases to the Alliance, just as Thrall has biases to the Horde. Legion, I think, was the most Alliance-leaning expansion, with how it ultimately treated the Horde as a whole. And while we can definitely argue semantically on which side is often favored over the other, I cannot really hide my bias here for this particular video. Quite honestly, in the more recent WoW expansions since the end of Battle for Azeroth, the Horde just really isn't in the focus, and the most we usually get are in very brief side quests. It's not that the Horde isn't in the game or story anymore, they still are, but they're hardly ever in the main storyline or are a part of the main cast of characters. There's a reason why in Shadowlands there was a meme of just Bane just sitting in Orbo's, not really doing anything until the very, very end of the expansion. And even then it was too late and his role felt like a cameo than an integral role in the story. Just in general, the Horde characters have not been treated the best lately. Compare this to Mist of Pandaria, where both sides felt represented on the Isle of Thunder, where you followed Lor'themar Theron and his Blood Elves, or Jaina Proudmoore and her agents of the Kirin Tor to face the Thunder King and his Mogu Empire. It simply felt good to be included in the story, rather than it just being the player character that is weirdly meant to represent the entire Horde when being part of the story. I think everyone can at least admit that they like to see their faction or race represented, or to see their favorites be vital in storyline in some cases. In Battle for Azeroth, a storyline centered on the two factions warring, it was of course filled to the brim with Alliance and Horde storylines. And it sadly is also really just the last time the Horde felt like it mattered in the main story. Same for the Alliance, to a lesser degree. And some of it was also mostly just the Horde being more an antagonistic force when not centered on the storylines in Zandalar, Nezhtar, Mechagon, or, the rebellion against Sylvanas with Sarfang and his allies. While Battle for Azeroth certainly had its own deal of failings, its focus on the factions, at least in my opinion, was not what made it lacking. Shadowlands is most certainly when it got at its worst for representing both sides and having them actually matter in the overall narrative, as namely the Covenants took the main stage rather than the factions. But the story still made it clear that the objective was saving the Alliance's king, Anduin, from the clutches of the Jailer, and also procuring the deceased souls and victims of Teldrassil for the Night Elves. Not the greatest of highlights, obviously, but there really wasn't much going on for the Horde outside of maybe helping out Vol'jin become a Loa, or Thrall reconnecting with his mom. But as before, those were each but one questline as compared to patches or an expansion. Just because you have Thrall, Bane, Jaina, and Anduin present in the story does not mean they're vital or important in the overall narrative of the expansion. Shadowlands was faction representation done wrong simply, and I'd again really only argue Anduin was vital out of all of them, really. And he was forced into not even being himself as the core part of that story. And that storyline is also being continued outside of Shadowlands with far more intrigue than just evil Anduin does evil Anduin things. But we already know how much Shadowlands fumbled and struggled with its own identity and story. Meanwhile, Dragonflight is one of the more odder ones, as it focused namely on the Dragonflights and their home on the Dragon Isles, where neither side felt represented in the main storyline, but you could still feel the lack of the Horde being focused on in the story and continent, as once more the Night Elves and their own plight of rebuilding a new home was very important in the end. And what the Horde got in the equivalent was just Bane avenging Bovan after he and his tribe attempted to move to their new village, but were attacked. A solid questline by the way, but it's nowhere near as important as how the Night Elves and their new world tree was showcased through several cinematics, questlines. It's the entire purpose of the patch, really. It's the ending of Dragonflight. And we're still getting quests regarding that to this day. And before anyone twists it, it's not about the Alliance also not getting storylines, it's about both sides feeling represented well in the main narrative. When it makes sense to focus on the Orcs, focus on the Orcs. When it makes sense to focus on the Draenei, focus on the Draenei. All that I ask is we have something for both sides to chew on and be happy with in an expansion or patch like we once had in the past. It's not about removing the Alliance from the story. It's not about just having the Horde in the storyline. We ain't having that. And to some credit again, I did appreciate and like that the Horde and Alliance characters and leaders were coming in at the very end to help defend the World Tree from Farak. A nod to the end of the Reign of Chaos where everyone defended the World Tree is great. Could have used more build-up, obviously, but it still made me happy. Wasn't enough, but I'm giving it points still. More of that, just way more of that, for the overall expansion. And now we get to War Within. And to reiterate, for this one in particular, everything about the art, marketing, and cinematics gave me the impression that after all of these years of focusing on mostly neutral factions and characters, that we'd be getting Alliance and Horde storylines and characters once again. As seen with Thrall, Anduin, and Illyria in most of those. You can even see Horde and Alliance soldiers fighting side by side against swarms of Nerubian here. Had me pumped. Had me very pumped. You had Thrall rally up Anduin to take the fight to Azeroth once more. I was under the strong impression that this was Thrall leading the charge, just as he had in the past, alongside Anduin and Illyria. All eyes were on Thrall as the lead for the entire Horde, We were curious to see just what he would do next, because he was our pillar. He was the guy to represent the Horde this time around once again. And I was stoked because this was and is Thrall, one of my favorite characters in Warcraft to actually be vital again, who really hasn't been relevant, I want to say, since like Warlords of Draenor maybe? It's up for debate. I'm not gonna have that be argued exactly. But we were wrong. I was wrong, because apparently Thrall is nowhere close to being as vital in the storyline as Illyria and Anduin, and even Magni, at least at the start of the expansion, so far. Spoilers, but apparently Thrall and Jaina leave to go gather their naval fleet from the Horde and Alliance as reinforcements to help out against this threat after whatever happens to Dalaran. Spoilers, I know. It does not help that more stuff has been data mined recently that Thrall has little else to do after this, after bringing the naval fleet and reinforcements too, seemingly, in the first, patch. The first initial release of the expansion, there's not a lot of Thrall going on, it seems. Subject to change because it's alpha, of course, but gotta say something about it now in hopes that it'll play out very, very differently. But yeah, when I read all of that, I was still and am excited, but at the same time, I was really hoping that Thrall and the Horde was once again going to be big in the main storyline. We honed in on Thrall because he was and is the only real prevalent Horde character journeying with us right now. If it was any other character, if it was Gazlo, if it was G Firepaw, and they were the characters that we were focusing on, that was the Horde, all eyes would be on them. If it was Rexxar, obviously, all eyes would be on them too. It's just what would happen. Yes, the fact that it is Thrall is something that I'm gonna hone in on even more because I love orcs and I love him. He's just one of those characters. And it's beyond frustrating to have this sort of thing be repeated for not just characters I like a lot, but also the faction I like a lot. I know I'll still very likely appreciate and maybe even love the few storylines with Thrall and the ones that they'll tell with Anduin and Illyria, but it simply does not feel good to be treated as second-rate for Warcraft's overall narrative for the past few years or so. And it feels like that is to be continued going forward. It's not good. It's not what Warcraft should be doing at all right now. Many might even ask, what else could you do with Thrall still? And there's plenty that you can tell. That's up to the writers as always, and surprisingly, I'm not in charge of Warcraft's writing, but you can have Thrall mentor Anduin, or help recruit the Earthen, or be a guide as the former World Shaman to help commune with Azeroth herself. We see that in the cinematic. There's plenty you can still tell, and I'm just scratching at the surface here with my ideas. There's loads you can do with any character besides Thrall, and Thrall being as big as he always has been does not take much to get that ball rolling, at least in my opinion. One of the things it said in the interview a while ago when War Within was first announced was that Thrall was going to be grappling with his new role in the Horde. Why not follow that plotline in War Within? Or why not have him interact with the rest of the cast? A mentorship between him and Anduin, as I said. Or the troubling past that Illyria had with the orcs that invaded her home so long ago. What's it like to work with somebody like Thrall who isn't like that? You can do plenty. The rest of the Horde leaders themselves are ripe with potential, just as much as any of the Alliance leaders are too. So many of them are someone's favorite out there, and they all deserve a fair shot in the narrative. Remember how I brought up Mr. Pandaria earlier? That expansion is known quite well for how much it gave arcs and roles for several leaders from both sides, some even for the first time. Both the Alliance and the Horde are core pillars to this franchise, and I'm really worried we're heading in the wrong direction entirely without one of them, and potentially even both. We've been moving backwards instead of forwards. But I'm not giving up. I sound defeated. I sound tired, because I am. But my optimism, for whatever reason, is undying still. I'm still excited, I'm still looking forward to other things, I'm not giving up on Thrall and War Within, just yet. And there's still Midnight on the horizon, which is entirely centered in Quel'Thalas, and hopefully more than just Blood Elves will be focused on there, like Zandalari, Darkspear, and Amani Trolls, maybe even other parts of the Horde doing their part to help the Sindori allies there. I want to see the Horde and the Blood Elves interact together in a positive manner. And we've also got the rest of War Within. Still got patches that can sort things out and have Thrall be more vital in them, hopefully. All I can do right now is express and encourage that we see the Horde more, and most importantly see Horde characters more in the World Soul Saga and beyond the World Soul Saga. Like Thrall. Just let him be as important in the story as the other characters like Anduin and Illyria. That is what War Within needs to be a complete success in my eyes, because Thrall deserves it, the Horde deserves it, and most importantly, we as fans deserve it. But those are just my overall thoughts, and I'll repeat, hopefully a lot of what I just talked about becomes dated as hell and irrelevant, and I'm just plainly wrong and everything works out. But I wanted and needed to get my thoughts out there because these are not new thoughts and concerns. They are old ones. I've been doing this for a while on this channel apparently. These are not new ideas. And I want this problem of itself to just end. Let it go. Let me know what you all think down below though. Feel free to like, comment, and subscribe. Join us on the Discord where we talk about all sorts of stuff and things. Or you can even support me on my Patreon like these amazing folks here. But until next time, my friends, see you!